Good morning, everybody. Is this working? You can. I can hear it. Yes.
Good to see you.
So thank you for joining us. This is a large room, but we're hoping to have a little bit more of an intimate conversation. So do feel free to move on up if you'd like, and a little bit closer, so we can have a conversation. We have 3 objectives for this town hall. The first is to give you, as quickly as possible, an update of where we are with the planning process, just as a point of information, and then really to use the rest of the time to get feedback on the outcome. And so the idea is that we spend from now until about 11:30 giving you an update on the different aspects of the conference itself and how it's coming together. Then spend about a half an hour with our conference chair, Marusha Kardama, who I believe is on the line. Is she on the line?
Indeed, Jeff.
Fantastic.
Yes, I'm on the line.
Okay.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes. So
just a little note for a little reminder. So we remembered that I have to jump off the call a few minutes before noon because of other commitment within the UN house as well, if you remember.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Marusha. So we're hoping to dedicate a little bit of time to the outcome. So hearing your vision and ideas for the outcome and getting some feedback from the people in the room on some of the key questions that are posted about the document. And then after Marusha leaves at around noon, we would turn it over to the youth, who will give us an update and also get some feedback on their survey and let us know when we can expect their draft document. So that's the way we're going to roll this morning. Thank you to those of you who are joining us on the live web stream. I don't think I introduced myself. My name is Jeff Brez. I'm the Chief of NGO Relations, Advocacy and Special Events in the Outreach Division of the Department of Global Communications, and I'm also co-chair of the planning process of the 68th UN Civil Society Conference, together with Marusha Kardama, who is also the co-chair of the planning committee. So co-chairing the planning process together, and as you know, once we get to Salt Lake City and the conference commences, then it is Marusha, on behalf of civil society, who chairs the conference. So without further ado, let me pass it over to Marusha for some welcoming remarks.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, DGC, for pulling this town hall together. We very much appreciate it, and for making this connection remotely to me and to other colleagues available. And thank you very much to all civil society colleagues and partners in the room today. Very much appreciated your presence. So let's go straight into matter here, and allow me please to tell you what do I think that we are having quite an interesting conference this year. I think that it is rather phenomenal that we are taking the opportunity of discussing a topic such as that of a sustainable and inclusive cities and communities directly with civil society. We know very much that it's impossible to achieve that type of communities and cities without clear hands-on empowerment and action and enablement of civil society. So I think that we have a wonderful match here. And what is also very important is that that wonderful match is complemented with yet another wonderful match, which is the fact that for the first time, DGC is co-hosting the conference with a city, with a local government, with Salt Lake City, not any city, not any government, but one that particularly shines very brightly because of their internationally recognized work on sustainability and inclusive communities. And you know well that when the conferences come out of the headquarters, it's been hosted and it has taken place in different cities across the globe. But this is the first time that there is actually a direct co-organization between DGC and the local government, and that is something to celebrate. I think that another important point for us to celebrate as well, particularly for the USA colleagues in the room and joining us for this adventure of this conference, is that this is the first time that a United Nations conference is taking place in the United States outside of the UN headquarters in New York, and this is certainly a very special occasion, I think, for all of us. And perhaps to move on now to more specific aspects, if you want, of what we're trying to achieve by having strategic alliances and the strategic presence of some key actors along with us. I think that we can also celebrate that we will have with us the President of the General Assembly of the United Nations during the conference. This is a phenomenal treat to all of us that will give us the opportunity of hand out to the President of the General Assembly the outcome document of the conference. I would like to draw your attention, to all of you, to the wonderful video that the PGA has already made available to all of us, and that is being disseminated by DGC, and that speaks of the interest that civil society has got in this topic and in going to Salt Lake City to share their experiences and learn from the experiences of Salt Lake City. So I think I'm going to stop here. We have a full hour to keep discussing, and I would love to hear from Jeff as well and all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marusha. Before we move to the next speaker, just a reminder and a quick survey. Who is using social media today? Okay. Do we all know the hashtag? Yes. What's the hashtag? Yes, okay. UNCSC 2019, for those of you on the line as well. I'm watching on Twitter. We're also watching on Facebook. So questions and comments, feel free to send them there as well. Next, we're very, very pleased to have Ben Collender on the line as a representative of the host committee in Salt Lake City. Ben.
Hey Jeff, this is Sarah Shriver here. I'm not sure if Ben could make it this morning, so I will give a few remarks on his behalf.
Thank you very much. So this is Sarah Shriver representing Ben and saying a few words on behalf of the host committee in Salt Lake City. Thank you, Sarah. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Jeff and Marusha, for your remarks so far. Our community is beyond excited to be the host for this 68th United Nations Civil Society Conference, and we're so excited as we've just confirmed our Salt Lake City thematic session, which focuses on sustainable communities leading the way. And with that, we're excited to highlight local government efforts here in Salt Lake, which have created inclusive communities in and around Salt Lake City and Park City. So we have our co-chair, Samira Harnish, who's on the line, and I'm sure she'd love to say a few words in a couple of minutes about the thematic sessions we've been working hard on with our counterparts in New York City. We've got Leah Barker, who is the co-chair for workshops, also on the line, and she's been working extremely hard with her counterparts as well. And it's just really cool to see this all come together as we've been working with members of the community, Visit Salt Lake, and we're just so grateful for the opportunity to host the world here in Salt Lake City at the end of August.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, now we'll hear from our perennial co-hosts, the NGO DPI Executive Committee, Chair Bruce Knotts.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. This is really a wonderful conference. It's, as Marusha mentioned, it's a first of a kind. We have never had a conference in the United States except here at the UN headquarters. And of course, you know, the United States is an important country. It's a permanent member of the Security Council, founding member of the UN. And the UN is not always popular in all parts of the United States. So having this conference out west in a different part of the United States where perhaps people can get to see and understand and appreciate what the UN does, I think is very important. Also, these conferences have always had a large role in feeding into UN systems. And so topics of conferences find their ways into UN resolutions, find their ways into global policy. And so I sometimes call the United Nations a percolator where new ideas come from. And these conferences are one of the greatest laboratories where we can develop ideas which wind up becoming global policies. I want to say a word or two about the Executive Committee elections. They are in process. Voting will end tomorrow. We've struggled really hard with this election. It has not been easy. DGC, citing rules in Europe, have not been able to share emails with us. So we've used the NGO reporter email list and coordinated that with DGC to make sure that the NGOs that we're sending emails to for balloting are in fact approved DGC email addresses and that they are in good standing with DGC. So and a couple of people have written and said that they haven't received ballots. We're trying to rectify that here in the last day of the elections. As I said, it ends tomorrow. We hope to get the results early next week. The committee will look at the results to make sure that everything is proper and done in the right way, and then we will turn that over to DGC and announce it to all of you. We want people to be part of the executive committee, and whether you've run for a director position or not, there are many subcommittees, and the more active participation we have from people in the executive committee, the better. So I hope all of you will consider being part of our subcommittees, lending a hand, being part of this partnership. I have said for years and years and years, I believe the success of the United Nations over the past 75 years has been because of civil society engagement with the United Nations. And I think the more civil society engagement there is, the more successful the United Nations can be. And without it, I think the United Nations will fail as the League of Nations failed. So I think it's up to all of us, first of all, to be engaged ourselves and with our own NGOs, but also to invite other NGOs and other individuals to be engaged with the United Nations. This is important policy and it's important work for the survival of our planet. And just a last note, many of you have never seen me without a suit and tie. And the reason I'm not in a suit and tie is it's very hot and humid outside. And because and that's part of global warming. That's part of climate change. We're all seeing very disturbing climate changes around the world. And that's going to be a key theme of this conference. It's something we need to pay attention to. The United Nations is leading global consensus on working on climate change. That effort needs to be stronger, deeper, and more effective. And that's where we come in. We need to be involved in that effort to make sure that UN policies and UN agreements are adhered to and followed and even exceeded. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce Knott. Let's move on to sort of the second portion, which is an update on the conference planning, and we're going to start with registration by our colleague Catherine Good, and then we'll move straight to some of the outreach initiatives that are happening. So, Catherine, over to you for the good news.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I always get to give the good news, which is how wonderful our registration numbers are. I think they put me here on purpose. So I think we have a slide that's going to show you our demographics, our wonderful representation. The truth is I couldn't believe that we hadn't passed 6,400, so I checked this morning. Trang, our intern, was here at 7 a.m. to prepare the slide for everyone. It's a fact, 6,402 as of this moment have registered. The largest number ever. And we're tracking really where we had hoped to be. We understand from some of the people who have registered that there are long waits to get visas to come into the U.S., so that is a challenge that people are facing. And so we don't know that everyone will be able to come. We hope that most everyone will be able to come, but unfortunately those are the hazards of travel, is that we are dependent on different processes to get people to come to the U.S. So we have, I would say, almost half and half inside the United States and outside the United States. You can see that our numbers have gone up across the board since we had our last meeting, and that looks really great. NGOs, the heart of the conference, are the largest group represented, and we have a huge number of youth and academic institutions represented as well. So we know that it's a conference for the present and for the future, and we're going to carry those messages forward. We are open for registration until the 1st of August, and then we're going to have to shut down registration. For people who are in Utah or able to get there, we will have on-site registration available. I do want to give a heads up to any press and media, and those of you who know press and media who are planning to come, even those who are already based in Salt Lake. We have a media accreditation unit at the United Nations, and because this is a UN conference, we've asked that all press and media register through MALU, the Media Accreditation Liaison Unit, which is part of our department. And if you go to the registration website, you'll be able to see the link there to click on, so that all press and media have their formal accreditation that will give them access to spaces reserved for press on site at the conference. Other than that, I would say that the youth numbers look really strong. Hawa, who's not able to be here today because she's attending a youth event in honor of the conference, in support of the conference in China, had hoped for 50%. So if you are under 32, sign and haven't registered already, please do that. We want Hawa to be happy always. And our gender composition is tracking about half and half as well. So we're really thrilled with the numbers, and we look forward to the next 2 weeks.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I'll just say, if you have partners in North Dakota, South Dakota, Arkansas, or Kentucky, please reach out to them directly and say we want to see them at the conference. Those are the only states that we're missing at the moment in the United States. And of course, around the world, you see the map has some gray countries, and that indicates that there is no individual who has registered. And we'll just also sort of asterisk these numbers by saying that obviously it is free to attend UN events. The number of registrants does not guarantee the number of participants. So this is not the number of people who are going to show up. It's simply the number of people who have registered. But it does give us an indication of how many people we think will attend. So now I'd like to hand it over to Troy Wolf from UNA USA to talk a little bit about outreach activities and efforts.
Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to comment on my brother Bruce mentioning that he chose not to wear a suit, as many people notice that he usually does. People notice that I usually wear a suit too, and I joke around and say that I was born in a suit, so I'm representing the flip side of that, Bruce. Well said, well done, well done. So on behalf of the Outreach and Engagement Committee, we have been very diligent over the past couple of months with outreach. As many of you know, there is no one right way to perform outreach. And so, you know, opening it up to this body is something that we really look forward to hearing your suggestions on ways to move forward. One of the challenges that we have with a conference of this type, as Marusha said, that we are looking to host an inclusive conference in Utah. And so frequently when we host UN events, we reach out to the tribe who always supports UN activities. And so I encourage all of us to think outside of the box as we enter in these last couple of weeks. We welcome your suggestions on new networks to engage, faith-based organizations, certainly NGOs, sororities, fraternities, other networks that you might have access to. Please communicate with us so that we can make sure that we tap into those networks. Just the last thing that I want to say, Catherine gave the tremendous data that we've got 6402 registered, and we do know that there will be some drop-off with that. Our committee continues to be responsive to the data as it comes in, and so we're constantly analyzing, as Jeff just said, you know, there's certain states that have not registered. There's certain countries where we would like more representation from. Matter of fact, at the beginning of July, through the UN Foundation, we reached out to all the embassies here in New York City and did some outreach to 32 embassies, extending them letters from European countries to tap into their networks to encourage them to register for this conference. So I will pause there, but certainly Troy Wolf Outreach and Engagement Committee, if you have suggestions on additional networks for us to tap in during these last final weeks, please pull me aside before I leave today, or just send an email to the committee, and we will make sure to tap into those networks. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. So related to outreach, we have a question about translations of the outcome document, and so I don't have it right in front of me, but I can tell. So John Lechty, and yes, translations are coming. Hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have them all posted in the 6 official UN languages, so thank you for the question. As many of you know, typically this is the first draft of the outcome. We translate them and post them, and then we post a new conference draft about a week or 2 weeks ahead of the conference. And that one is typically posted only in English because the conversation at the conference is going to happen in English. So just to sort of set expectations that that's what's going to happen, but for this draft we do expect translations to come tomorrow. So thank you for the question. So now we're going to have an update from the workshops subcommittee.
Okay.
Hold on, Fanny. I think we had, yeah, okay, go on. Wasn't there another slide? Was there another slide? Can you go back to that slide so we can show them? Sorry, everyone. We actually just wanted to show you a couple of wonderful things we thought you should be aware of on the outreach front. So a couple of weeks ago, there was an op-ed that ran in the Salt Lake Tribune, written by Alison Smell, our Undersecretary General, and the wonderful Kathy Calvin, the CEO of the UN Foundation. So take a look if you haven't read it. And just yesterday, I think, a wonderful opinion piece was posted in Deseret News, written, co-authored by a youth representative, Andrew Jensen, and by the president of the Utah Valley University, Astrid Tuminez. So again, very worth your while for a read, both wonderful articles. And one more thing we wanted to show you in terms of outreach is this wonderful message from the United Nations General Assembly, President of the General Assembly, who announces that she is going to be joining us. So we're going to roll, hopefully, that video right now for you.
The United Nations exists to serve you, the global public. That means we need to listen to you, to support and empower you, and to work with you as partners. That is why I've made it my priority to bring the UN closer to the people and to make it more effective, more transparent, more accountable, and more relevant to everyday lives. And that is why I'm going to the UN Civil Society Conference in Salt Lake City in August. This year's conference will focus on building inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable cities, a crucial part of our ambition to create a better future for all people everywhere. And I want to hear from you, learn from your experiences, and share ideas. So, if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to register for this conference and join us in beautiful Salt Lake City.
So that has been shared on social media. Take a look and share it with your followers and friends, please. We do have 2 more weeks until registration closes. Okay, now over to Fanny Munlin, who I think is going to take the lead on updating us about workshops.
Yes. Thank you all for coming, and I would like to say a word of thanks to my workshop committee. We worked diligently to make sure that we had great workshops. We approved over 200 workshops. We're in the process of populating the rooms with workshops, and so we look forward to seeing you in Salt Lake City. The themes are varied, and we've got some very informative and we think interactive workshops that will take place in Salt Lake City, and I look forward to seeing all of you there. If you have any questions, I will answer them for you.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi. The reason that I want to jump in is that somebody just sent me an email, and it's someone who couldn't get on the broadcast, but two of the questions that they have actually relate to workshops.
Okay.
The first question that they ask is a list available and that includes when the workshops will be and where they'll be located? And the second question is the cost of equipment if the workshops require PowerPoint.
We sent a registration when we sent the approval letter. We sent out with that approval letter the payment process. And on that form, it lists all of the costs. For I understand, Wi-Fi is included in the cost that you are paying for the room. Now, the way we are working the workshops this way, you pay Salt Palace. Salt Palace then notifies us that you have paid, and then we assign a room. And once we assign the room, we will give you all the details about where the room is located within Salt Palace and the capacity of that room.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes. Yes.
I have submitted the application and approved.
Yes.
I have paid.
Yes.
And I asked you to assign the date and time and room weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything yet. So I start worried what the situation is.
Well, we're just beginning to send out all the details on the rooms, and you will get this approval with all the information about the room very soon. This week, things are going up.
This week?
Yes.
I see. I shall wait. Thank you.
Any other question? Yes.
Is there a deadline for
So just a reminder to please press the button so that your mic comes on. Yes.
The submission for workshop proposal closed.
Closed?
Yes. Okay. We are not accepting any more applications. We received over 200 applications for workshops. That includes New York and Salt Lake City. And Salt Lake City and New York have worked very closely together to make sure we got the perfect selection and a cross-section of workshops from all the themes that we have. So we are not accepting any additional ones. We had over 200 workshops and over 200 applications. And we're going to have approximately 200 workshops going on in Salt Lake City.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to the outcome document. Wait, no, I'm sorry. I take it back. So, exhibit. So, Margot Lazaro, co-chair of the exhibit subcommittee. Apologies.
No problem. Thank you, Jeff. We're all so involved here, so that's okay. So I'm Margot Lazaro, and I am co-chair of the exhibits subcommittee, and I would like to take a moment to thank my co-chairs, Sharon, who's here, James, who's in Salt Lake, and Alice, who joined us when she could from Copenhagen, and the rest of our committee, which is Birjan, Jason, Mary, Corey, Andres, and Fumi, for really being great to work with. We got through. When we did it, we really cracked through it, and we made sure everybody had a chance to be holding an exhibit in the conference. We have over 150 exhibits. Some are still pending a vetting process, and we should be through that by the end of this week, next week, I should say. The deadline for paying with the vendor is August 6th, and you must meet that deadline to be able to have an exhibit in the conference. So we're getting this out, and we're reminding people, please make your payments. You can contact the vendor and ask about what your needs might be, how to cover it, what you need. They're very nice, and they will work with you. But you need to make your payment by August 6th to actually have an exhibit. in the conference. We have a variety of topics that are being covered, and we have exhibitors coming from Salt Lake is being covered, Africa, South America, Asia, a mixture of stakeholders, because this is in an open area. It's not just in a UN-centric space. It's also open to the public. So we have the private sector is joining us, as well as NGOs and academia. So it should be a very rich experience having everybody in that area to walk through. And because we're in an open area this year, we're going to allow vendors, I keep saying that, exhibitors to sell items. So there's books being sold, possibly jewelry, and all made from artisans that are related to grassroots or topics that are important to what we're dealing with SDG 11. So we have a lot to cover in the exhibits, and I just want to add a quick note here. 2 days ago, some of us who deal with the issues related to Habitat and SDG 11 had a meeting with the executive director for UN Habitat. She knows about this conference. UN Habitat will be there, and she's very excited that civil society is participating in this conference in Salt Lake, and that it's being hosted by a city. So we're open to any questions you might have, and that's it. That's all we have for now.
Thank you very much for the update. It's always encouraging to see the large number of proposals and approved exhibits. I think it's going to be wonderful. Just a reminder that that space in Salt Palace is going to be open not only to conference participants, but also to the general public. So those exhibitors are going to receive a lot of visibility there. All right, so finally for this session, we'll move to Samira Harnish, who is on the line. She's co-chair of the thematic sessions, to give us an update. Samira, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very excited, actually. We have less than 40 days, I think, for the conference. So my update is number one, Utah speakers added to each thematic session. And I add tab in Google Documents in the Basecamp called Salt Lake City Local Speakers. So most of the thematic session now include Utah speakers, but still a few spots available for speakers in topics tech and infrastructure. I really would like to have this complete next week so we can forward it to DGC for invitation. Second, Utah thematic session we draft the description for a speaker for the Utah thematic session that when Sarah, she did mention that we are very happy to call it as Sustainable Communities Leading the Way. It has been forwarded to DGC, I think. Third, and finally, a draft description and suggested speakers for an impact investment. Thematic session has been forwarded to DGC. That's all I have to update you with it.
Thank you very much, Samira. Just so we have Scott Carlin, another co-chair from that subcommittee. Thank you for being here with us. Scott, over to you.
Thank you, Samira, for that introduction. And thank you, Jeff. So the Thematic Sessions Committee has vetted an excellent and diverse group of nominees that come from nations across the globe and civil society organizations from grassroots to the private sector. NGOs are well represented in our speakers, and they come from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds. We have gone through 4 rounds of vetting of speakers, and we probably have just one more to go. We want to thank everybody for their nominations of speakers. The next step that we're going to move towards is we're going to work with our moderators to come up with some creative, innovative, high-impact formats for our thematic sessions. We particularly want to increase the amount of audience participation that we have in these sessions. And since we haven't finalized that yet, we'd be open to ideas from anybody, so please get in touch with the conference organizers or the thematic sessions co-chairs.
Thank you very much, Scott Carlin. I'd like to remind everyone that the contact information for the co-chairs of all the subcommittees is posted online, so you should feel free to contact them directly. And also regarding thematic sessions, you may remember that in the concept note there are 6 key thematic sessions, and given the number of people that are coming and the space that we have available at the beautiful Salt Palace, we have decided together with the co-hosts and the co-chairs of the planning committee to increase the number of thematic sessions. We've actually added 5 sessions, also based on feedback from civil society. We're going to post those, so we're just finalizing some of the titles and finalizing descriptions, and we will be posting those on the website very soon. So keep an eye out for that. We'll also let you know via social media that is coming or that it's posted, so keep an eye on whether you're using Twitter or Facebook out for that announcement. All right. Any questions about any of this before we move on? Ma'am, yes. Press the button just below the yes.
My name is Sheila Katzman. I'm president of the International Association for Women in Radio and Television and the chair of New York City for CEDAW. I just want to make an intervention on the issue of visa. Since 2016, it has gotten worse. And for us, my organization, we've had quite a lot of problems of people being turned down, even though they've been here before. Through Queen Mother, I think, her advocacy, NGO CSW is putting a group together to go to DC next week because a few congressional people, members, have decided to take this on. So I am wondering if someone from DPI, I'm used to that, I used to work there, it was DPI. So DGC would send someone, or perhaps, you know, we could speak on the behalf of this conference coming up, and with 6,000 something, don't know how many of those people are going to really get visas, who need visas, especially from the global south.
So thank you very much for that. I think clearly from our perspective, we know that visas are, it takes time to get a visa, and there's never a guarantee. So we have certainly informed, so as Department of Global Communications, we've informed the Department of State that this event is happening, and the documentation that we can provide is the confirmation of registration for the conference. So beyond that, there's really nothing that we can do in terms of reaching out to facilitate, because it's a very separate process, you know, run by a member state. In some cases, if speakers are having a hard time getting a visa appointment, we can write a letter if there are speakers, but we don't have the just the people power to do much more than that. But we do know that there are folks out there who are having trouble getting their visa, so we're absolutely aware of the issue. So thank you for mentioning that. Okay, any other comments before? We did want to spend a little bit of time, but 10 more minutes with Marusha to get some feedback on the outcome. Yes.
And I'm a liaison for SIGMA, the International Nursing Honor Society, and I just had a couple questions. One, are the workshops and the sessions going to be live streamed from the conference like the sessions from New York have always been? And secondly, I was wondering if any of the workshops are going to address migration as it affects and is affected by climate change. I know the MGIs, or the Migration Governance Indicators, are talking about that, and I'm just wondering if there will be some information on that at the conference.
Thank you very much. So there is a thematic session on climate change. I have a strong feeling it will come up. We can never, you know, we don't know what the speakers will talk about exactly, but we have an idea. I would be surprised if it didn't come up, but you know, we certainly can't guarantee it. With regard to the workshops and the thematic sessions, workshops are not live streamed, they never have been, but organizers are free to Facebook Live their sessions, right? So that's on the workshops. On the thematic sessions, you know, even here at the United Nations, the interpretation and webcasting is always a question of budget. So we now, at this point, have 11 thematic sessions. Not all of them will be live streamed. So once we have the final number, we can let you know, but at least 3 in the main room will be live streamed. So, so the core of the conference, the opening and the closing, plus at least 3 thematic sessions will be live streamed. Thank you. Thank you for the question. So if you don't mind, we only have Marusha for a few more minutes. Thank you very much. So we did want to go, if we can go to the next slide, over to Marusha and get, introduce you a little bit to the outcome document. And actually, I think it's Father Brian Musas who's going to kick off that conversation. Yes? Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. As Jeff has noted, we're running a little bit short of time. Since we're scheduled to conclude in 40 minutes, I'll dispense with most of the pleasantries and dive right in. The first thing that I want to make sure that everyone knows is how to find the outcome document draft. So if you go to the conference website, across the top, there will be a box that you can click that says outcome. And if you click that, it will bring you to the first draft of the document. And you'll be able to download a PDF so that you can look at it at your leisure. And the text in English is also located on that page. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of that page, you will see a big blue link that says Submit Your Feedback Online Consultation Form. And if you click that, it will bring you to a page that reads the 68th UN Civil Society Conference Outcome First Draft Online Consultation. And that will allow you to respond to a number of questions, to offer feedback. The deadline for offering feedback is August 5th, 2019. So if someone who's not in the room has ideas and wishes to share them, that web page is your friend. And it will lead you through a couple of questions, and then you'll be able to leave the feedback that you would wish to leave. And then the committee will take that feedback and integrate it into the conference draft of the document. Now, as you look over that document, it's important to understand where this has all come from. At the time we began work on this draft, there were not 11 thematic sessions, there were only 6. And so we have heavily based the document on the 6 original thematic sessions as they stood at the time. You'll also notice that there is an introduction and a conclusion and 3 middle sections. And the 3 middle sections are meant to elaborate principles, to offer recommendations, and to promote engagement. And these are set off by we affirm, we urge, and we commit. And then underneath all of these are bullet points that are related to the 6 original thematic sessions. Now, because this is a first draft, we felt that it was very important to stress content over elegance and form. And so you may find that a lot of these bullet points give you the impression that you're reading lists of lists. We are aware of that, but we just wanted to put the material out there so that people could chew on the material and think about what should be emphasized, what should be de-emphasized, what should be included that hasn't been included yet. We're also very much aware of language. We want to make sure that we stay away from UN jargon and UN alphabet soup, not because we dislike the jargon or the abbreviations or the acronyms, but because we want this document to be accessible to people who don't usually encounter the UN. It's been emphasized a number of times that this conference is the first one being held in the United States outside of New York City's headquarters. And so we want to make sure that people who have never seen and encountered the UN are able to engage with us at the lowest possible barrier to entry. So keeping that in mind, we also want to point out that forthcoming there will be another way of interacting with the outcome document, not with this document per se, but in terms of the outcome package, because we are preparing a survey that will allow people to offer concrete ideas to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, etc. That will be forthcoming as well, and information when that goes live will be sent out. But at this point, I'm happy to walk through the document in real time if we would like. I imagine I would have no more than 15 minutes to do that. Or I'm happy to field questions. I leave that judgment to Jeff because he knows these things better than I.
So I'm going to propose, I hope we have Marusha still on the line. I wanted to give her an opportunity to say a few words before we lose her about the outcome.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Indeed, I'm here just in time. Thanks a lot. I need to jump off in the next 2 minutes, but this is a great opportunity. Difficult to add on to what Father Brian has shared because it's been perfect. Perhaps I would like to encourage our colleagues, to look at the outcome for the conference as a package that consists of different elements. They are building blocks that speak to each other and that mutually reinforcing to each other. We have the outcome document that Father Brian has now presented to us, and he's told us what does it stand for. With other co-chairs of the subcommittee, Laurie in this case, based in Salt Lake City, we are trying to come up also with a visual, with a lasting image that could be owned by all of us who engaged in this conference and convey the critical aspects that the declaration is conveying, that the outcome document is conveying. A third important element of these of this package that the outcome is of course the document that the Jews are putting together, the Jews declaration, which will be particularly focused on climate in the wider length of cities and communities. But I won't go into any detail because our Jews leaders can tell us a bit more about it. And last but not least, as Father Brian presented already, we are very keen on making sure that this conference, which is all about action in cities and in communities, can actually empower the sense of self-agency that each of us individually and the different constituencies in which we come together can actually contribute to sustainable and inclusive cities and communities. So all I would say is please encourage you to submit comments to the outcome document that is already online, and also stand by to contribute equally to the Jews Declaration and to this compendium of ideas, initiatives, and guidelines to support the self-agency that we're going to be crowdsourcing directly from you with the form, and where you got our commitment to distill from what we get some key messages, some key inspirations, and then put it to the poll, put it to the voting of the participants at the conference to make sure that we end up selecting the top number indications and inspirations that have been directly crowdsourced from you to encourage and enable the self-agency of each of us as individuals and constituencies. So look at it, as I say, as a package, as a compendium of elements that constitute a bundle that is mutually reinforcing and that is at your service to be able to share some of the values we stand by when we talk about sustainable and inclusive cities and communities, and some of the enablers and the inspirational ideas that allow each of us to make that happen. So thank you very much for the opportunity of being with you today. Thanks, Jeff, and all the GC colleagues, and all my partners in crime in the planning committee, all the co-chairs of the different subcommittees. I know that in a couple of hours, we see each other again in the context of our weekly planning committees. Apologies that I have to jump off the call now, but I hope to see you all, or at least many of you, in Salt Lake City very soon. And for those engaging through social media today or watching us live, by all means, please register. And if you cannot join us in Salt Lake City, still engage in the process, still please contribute to this outcome. We want to listen to you, and we want to make sure that this is something that we can all own together. Thank you very much, everybody, and goodbye just for now.